Welcome back to Insight Club, and today we're talking about what is flow state. Stay tuned.
The first rule of Insight Club is you don't talk about Insight Club. You do Insight Club. The second rule of Insight Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Insight Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Insight Club.
Welcome back. So today I was telling Megan that I arrived here really shaky because I lost the sense of time. It's a holiday here in Brazil, so I didn't realize because I was following my actual day the same way. I didn't realize that my mom wasn't going to work today. So I was just thinking it's early because she wasn't in a rush yet and just enjoying the time in this under the sun. And then I realized it was a little bit later than I thought it was, and I snapped back in. So I feel like that's a great way to introduce what is flow, because for me, flow is that place. There's a lot of things that we're going to talk about, but it is that place where we lose track of time because we're just so present in the moment, so connected with what's happening in the now, that time really stops for us. But also, when something happens, like what happened to me, that you realize just in the moment that it's not the time that you thought, or something happens that goes wrong. It's so easy to be snapped out of it in a way that feels like you're waking up in the middle of REM state in a dream.
Yeah. I think that points to something really important, that it is a different state of consciousness. So, like being abruptly woken up, you're in the middle of a sleep cycle and the alarm goes off or somebody wakes you up and you scramble to reassimilate to awake, alert, in some case, like vigilant mode, depending on our startle impact, like what's going on, oh my god. It shows us that being in flow is a different state of consciousness. I relate to that feeling of something that's a hallmark of flow for me is losing track of time and kind of floating above time, maybe. Like, in some way, like time and movement are linked, right? Like we have a concept of time because there's movement and things shift.
Yeah.
But being in flow for me is a time where there can be a lot of movement, like there can be ideas flowing, I can be experiencing things, but I forget that there's linear time or time constraints. And the feeling is very much expansion. And I mean, if I were to think about time at all, it would feel like I have plenty of time.
Yeah.
And have you had moments, I'm sure you have, where time really does slow down, like in a relativistic Einsteinian way? Gay Hendricks talks about like being in Einsteinian time, where you are immersed in a thought or a feeling or an emotion, or you're creating, and so much happens that you're convinced like it must have been 30 minutes, an hour, and then you go and it's like 1 minute has passed when you come back to the real world.
Yeah, I experienced both. Feeling like it must have passed a long time, and also feeling like it's been just like 30 minutes and it's been 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So losing completely the sense of time for sure. But I love that you mentioned that it is a different state of mind. That when I was talking about dreams being in the middle of sleep, I didn't connect one thing to the other. But yeah, of course, that's why we feel so different from one thing to the other. And when you talked about movement, I was thinking, yeah, there's the movement and there's the space, right? And then time with that. What if flow is when we actually move with the space, or like in the speed of the space or something like that? Because when the space, you think of space is something stagnant and movement is in, it's moving, of course, then there's a difference that we would call time.
Yeah. I think
I'm getting philosophical on this.
but I think this is true on a literal level. I think this must be true on a literal level. So I've been reading You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and there are a lot of graphs of brainwaves in the book. And I think what you're saying must be literally true, that when we're in like a what would it be, like a theta state in a deep meditation, or at least an alpha, right? That our brain waves are literally vibrating in a different frequency from the alert beta state that we're in when we're, going through most of life and in the analytical mode. And so what if it's the case that that shift in our internal vibration and the amplitude and frequency of the waves is more matching the the container we're in, the space we're in? And that's why, we use this word flow, and when something flows, we think there aren't obstructions. It is fluid, it's able to move. What if that is the fact that we shift into a way of moving that is more aligned with the space we occupy? So instead of hitting all the barriers, we have a through passage.
Yeah.
That feels right to me.
Yeah, there is no no tension, no friction in between time and like space and movement, I guess.
Yeah. And yet there can still be, there's still dynamism, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking about the flow of creativity, like there can still be a lot of movement, and I'm not losing my sense of identity and self completely. Like I'm still am having thoughts and maybe formulating words even in my creative flow. But there is a sense of merging with something else, and but the ease, like
Ease. When you talk about flow state and creativity, I was just getting some insights with a friend the other day. When I mentioned when I'm channeling something, it's like I feel like I'm a passenger, and things are just coming here, but I'm letting it come. I'm letting it move, and I'm just like watching. So I experienced a moment where I was in that state channeling a song for someone else. And I was right, like, as I was seated back as the observer, watching what was coming through without any resistance. I had one moment where I resisted the word, but if that was what was coming, and I just surrendered it, I delivered. And that tiny friction that came in that moment was something that made me realize how in flow I was, because
yeah.
I noticed that this is definitely coming through and not from me, because otherwise it everything that was coming preceded the thought. And I think that's one of the keys of flow as well. The movement precedes the thought.
Yeah. Say more about that.
I feel like our mind is the thing that tries to control and takes us away from flow. But when we're just letting life move through us, and either if it's words, if it's melody, if it is feelings, whatever it is that we're doing, if it is like an action, when it happens before we can even logically think about it, we're actually in flow. And that happens, we can think that, oh, that happens when you're reacting as well, like in a negative way, because you can go on an impulse and do something that you wouldn't if you thought with logic before acting.
Right.
But it would be like that is instinct, but on one side, but there's also the intuitive flow that is it precedes the logical mind.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That makes sense. Oh, and you just brought up something so interesting for us to unpack, which is what is the difference, just even in our experience, and then maybe it branches out to like, why do we think this is the case? But what's the difference in our experience of acting prior to thought in a flow state and acting prior to thought in a reactive or emergency state?
Oh.
I keep having this image of being on like something with a sail and an emergency brake. and the flow is like the brake is off and it's like I'm not creating the wind, I'm steering. But I'm just like, woo. Sometimes when I'm writing and I'm really in flow, I literally look over my shoulder and I'm like, who said that?
Yes.
Because, oh my God, that's amazing. And it doesn't feel like I'm amazing and look how smart. I'm like, holy shit, keep going. I mean, yeah, keep whispering in my ear, whoever you are.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adore that feeling. And so it feels like I'm allowing the wind to just catch in my sail and move me. And then the moment you described of like, is that the right word? That's us pulling the handbrake, right? And so then you notice the difference. So for me, there's a swelling and a moving easily forward and allowing. That's the feeling of writing, whether I'm speaking or channeling rather, whether I'm writing or speaking.
Yeah.
And it is like, the more I move forward, the more I move forward. And it's like, I open and it comes through me. So I want to hold that description present and then see like, how is it different when I am reactive? A hallmark for me of reactivity before thought, like the kind of thing where I act first and then regret later, would be it's in relation to somebody else's action, and I'm like trying to create a particular outcome. Like there's something in that kind of reactivity. Like I think if I snap at Grady, right? Like
There's a controlling.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking for a certain reaction, and it also has a feeling of I'm right. Can't you see that I'm right?
Yeah.
That starts to create a distinction at all.
It does. Actually, I love what you're saying, because when you're moving forward, it's like we're leaning in to the thing, right? There's a reverence. I feel that's what what's coming from me for what you are saying. There's a reverence, a leaning in to the thing when it's flow. There's that humble feeling. Like you said, like you're looking back at your shoulder. I have the same feeling, like that can't possibly be coming just from me. There's a humbling feeling that I'm connected to something so big in here, a feeling of merging with that thing. And when it's reactive, there's a feeling that it's the opposite. There's no merging, there's no union, there's that feeling of break, of separation, of disconnection. Like I need to protect my ego from what's happening in here. So it's exactly opposite, but it happens without mind as well.
Yeah. It's a kind of lockdown.
Yeah, it's almost like mind is in the middle, and if we're leaning in and bowing to it, there's a flow, and if we're snapping back behind the mind, then there's the break.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then, ooh, okay. So then, for me, the dissociation, because we initially came to this topic thinking about like when we're not really in time, sometimes it's because we're in flow, but sometimes it's because we're in a state of dissociation, right? Like we just leave our bodies. And so what you've just said about like I'm leaning, like mind is maybe this like center point, and I'm leaning in beyond the mind, or I'm pulling back, and it's almost the way our brain is too, right? Where it's like that reptilian part of the, you know, the bottom of the brain is, it's like I can only deal in hunger, fear, you know, survival, these kinds of things, right? So if I snap all the way back, for me that's dissociation, and it's like I have to protect myself so much I can't even be here.
Yeah.
Which also can feel like being out of time. We can lose time. We can, you know, people have said things to us and we're like, I don't even know what happened.
I don't remember having said that.
I don't remember having said that. One of my dissociative responses I didn't realize was a dissociative response. And then when I learned about that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. One of my dissociative responses is just verbal diarrhea. Is just I get into a situation where I feel uncomfortable or scared for some reason, and I just start talking at a really high pitch at a really fast rate, and I have no idea what I am saying.
As someone who works with healing the voice and healing through voice, when I notice that someone goes in a high pitch that is not the natural, I know that they're dissociating. And I notice that in myself as well, because I don't normally talk like this. But when I get in this, like, what's happening? That's when, and it's not like that natural change in intonation when you get more excited and you do something like this. It's that regular going into that frequency that is not the natural. Right?
Yeah.
Because we fluctuate when we got more excited, or we get more calm, and that's normal. We're not just monotone all the time.
Right.
But when it's something that you see that snaps out of your normal, it's so easy to see in the voice.
I have a hypothesis about this that just dropped in, because for me, the high-pitched, fast-paced, dissociative talking is often brought on as a form of fawning, right? So people are familiar with freeze and flight, or fight and flight. There's also freeze, and then fawn is a trauma response as well. And if you think about being in the energy of somebody who has physical power over you or some other kind of power over you, if you can convince that person that, you know, you're their number one fan, you're going to be in less danger, right? So a fawn response is something that's fairly common, but it's a little bit more subtle because you're not like fists up and you're not running away, right? Yeah. And so here's my hypothesis. The high pitch is giving our voice less of the strong, I'm standing my ground and I know what I'm saying in my truth, and more of the fawning, little kid, um,
Yes.
uh, I will say like caricature of a feminine voice, right?
Yeah.
Like a Betty Boop kind of. Do you know the cartoon character Betty Boop,
Yes.
right? Boop boopy doop. I don't even know anything. Oh, right? What a helpful survival mechanism. If you put on that voice and you fawn, it gives the message, I'm just malleable and I'm not a threat to you. So that's, I don't know, that's my hypothesis that that's why it kind of naturally comes out, is that a higher pitched voice we perceive as less powerful, more malleable.
That makes total sense. And it even archetypically, it makes sense that women tend to lean into the more high pitched voice, even when it's not the normal. Some women even heard that they had a too low tone, and that felt too strong or too manly and so on, and they tend to try to speak more like this, to be more feminine and to be more like Betty Boop, like we were saying.
Yeah, yeah.
It is, but it is taking us away from our power center, from, like, my teacher calls, my voice mentor calls the throne of the voice, which is not even in the sacral, it's down there, it's in the base chakra.
Did you say the throne of the
The
voice?
throne of the voice.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's where the power comes. It's the Kundalini. It needs to move from there up, and not up here, just strangling us.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, so powerful. I had an incredible experience recently where I was giving a presentation. And on Zoom, like you just, when you're sharing your screen and you're looking at people's pictures and they're small and you're only seeing so many. And I was in the middle of what I was teaching and I just kind of glanced at people and I just had this panic moment of, oh my God, what I'm saying is not making sense. I was like, oh no, this is not landing. It's too abstract. It's not. And it was such a beautiful moment because what would have happened to me 10 years ago, maybe even just 3 years ago, is that I would have tried to push out more energy to try to recapture what I thought was lost attention. It turns out it wasn't lost attention. It turns out what I was saying, people responded to very well. They're like, that made so much sense. I got it. Yes. But a past version of me would have tried to push out more energy faster at a higher volume to go like, I have to, grab your attention back. And what I did instead in that moment was I regrounded. I intentionally slowed down. I reconnected with my emotions. I became very conscious of if I was feeling what I was saying. And it had an amazing impact on what I was teaching. Like it really, people got what I was saying, and it was a workshop space and we did some hot seats, and the way that people showed up for those hot seats was with a beautiful vulnerability that I know for sure they wouldn't have been able to have if I had been like push out, energy, as opposed to like, I'm here and I'm grounded and I'm going to hold you kind of energy. So that for me was like a really clear indicator of I was there and I was present. But it was such a beautiful experience of reclaiming flow in the midst of fear.
Yeah. I love that you brought that in, because it's exactly the difference between the consciousness that can snap us out of flow or can help us lean into it even more. I I experience this with things like when I get lyrics wrong singing, or when I have like a sing something out of tune, or the chord is wrong. It's so easy for me to be I'm out of tune, out of flow right away, and then the rest doesn't flow. But when we lean into the mistake, which is like what jazz calls to do as well, and you just go with that and play with whatever mistake happens and incorporate the mistake into it, then you are in flow again, and you're leaning into like everything that's happening is the right thing, even when it's wrong. And that's powerful, because then we can bring the mind into the flow without having it to be um an enemy from flow.
What you just said is highlighting for me another aspect of this word flow, which is that it keeps moving. So I say the wrong thing, I hit the wrong note. I either now sit here and hold that moment and go, crap, or I continue moving. And, maybe all of life can be broken down into like, you surrender to it or you don't, right? It's like you accept what's happening or you don't. But the perseverating on the mistake is a way of standing still and then even moving backwards, right? Because it's like, oh, I should have done it this way. Versus, oh, okay, you're coming along for the journey too. All right, well, the bus is going to keep going. Like, we're not stopping just because we got an unexpected passenger on board. So flow as movement, or like such an essential part of flow, I think, is you keep moving, you keep moving.
And what I hear from your workshop, for example, you didn't make a mistake. You felt that it was it could be that people weren't understanding what you were saying, so you were aware of it and then you moved with it, right? As opposed, that's my example with a mistake. But either way, it's exactly what you're saying. It's keep moving, and maybe even getting curious. Like you get an information, oh, maybe people are not understanding this, so I'm gonna lean in and open even more so that they can feel what I'm saying. Or in my case, oh, I made a mistake. I can pretend people don't see that I made a mistake and just play with it. Or if I feel like, oh yeah, of course I made a mistake, and then I retract, like I need to protect myself from having made a mistake, that's a completely different energy.
Yeah. And okay, so it's not just continuing to move forward, because another choice I could have made in that moment is like, just ignore it and just keep going. Like, just follow what you're doing. And I mean, in that moment, I thought I had made a mistake, but I thought it was a global mistake. I thought, oh, this sequence of like presenting information doesn't make sense. It's like I made a mistake and it's the whole thing, like this whole song is dissonant or out of key. But not just continuing to move forward, moving forward with the new inputs and absorbing, like bringing them in, assimilating them, like, okay, and this is true, and now this is true, and now this is true, and now this is true. And for me, there's such a thrill and such a joy in being live. I mean, even when I'm presenting like that and I have my plan and I have my slides and all that kind of thing, I'm there in the moment with the thrill of I don't know what will happen. And, having done a lot of theater when I was younger, one of the most titillating moments I experienced on stage was, one scene had ended and I came on for the next scene, and piece of the set had like broken or fallen over at the end. I think like somebody left and closed the door and something fell over. And so then I came in and it was like, how can I'm not just ignoring there's something fallen over, and I'm also not stopping and going, oh, what do it plays over. It was like, oh yes, this is okay, great. And then incorporating it. And I remember there being this energy from the audience. I don't know if it was vocalized, but I remember the energy of appreciation that was like, oh, you're riding that fine line between breaking the fourth wall and staying in character, like acknowledging that just happened and it wasn't supposed to happen, but now we're back. And it was like one of my favorite moments of being on stage, because it was like I'm saying yes to what is. And that's the whole idea behind doing improv, right? It's like, oh, and yes, and also this, and yes, and also this. And that's like, have you ever gone to watch live improv? Or I mean, even just watching videos?
Yeah.
It's so amazing. It's like, I think it's one of the best human endeavors because you just see people creating at lightning fast speed by simply saying yes, and also this. Yes. Like, talk about flow. So you're like full allowing everything that's coming up, also adding in something, not trying to control or steer or direct. There's a joy in it. There's a joy in flow.
Yeah. And you mentioned live, and I was like, yeah, live and alive, because that's the point with this as well. Even if you prepare for something, each moment is alive. It's not gonna be the same as the rehearsal. It's not gonna be the same every time, and that's the beauty in it as well. If it was all perfect as a rehearsal and there was no changes, everything would be exactly like this, there wouldn't be flow, because it would be something stagnant, right?
It's mechanized. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great for assembly lines, for
Yeah.
building machines. Yeah.
True.
Can you describe what's the feeling you have like when you're performing music live, and what that flow feels like?
Wow. It A lot of the things that I said in here relate a lot to it, because that feeling of leaning back if I make a mistake is something that I experience way too often. And it was breaking from it, which I'm still learning as I do it, that allowed me to really enjoy the process. Because when I'm singing without an audience, without thinking of the audience, I experience all these things of leaning into the mistake and leaning into the subtle uh, variations of the voice, because it is interesting. I get curious. Oh, can I sing this line a little bit different? How would it be if I play with it? If I bring up vibrato? If I add more air? Right? When it's the performance, I usually felt like performance. Now I need to make it right, but bringing that element of now each moment is alive, and I'm gonna just flow with the energy of the moment and with the people that are in there, and we're creating a egregora in a new energy at each time. That's where I felt like I actually can enjoy this and have fun in the presentation and allow it to come different each time. Uh, then it feels like true, like bliss in the moment. And I still have moments where I get my main mistake is when I don't get enough breath in the moment where I need it, and then I get my diaphragm to contract and I don't have enough breath in the next sentence. that's the kind of mistake that for me there's no way to really pull back from it. So I just need to really allow more prana, more air to come in and go with it, and make a bigger break in between the next song so that I'm prepared for the next song. But other than that, which is basically lack of inspiration,
Yeah.
maybe it's just a time where I leaned in, but not in a fully aware. Maybe I dissociated a little bit from my body, and I couldn't respond in the way that the song asked me for. Uh, Other than that, it's really like surrendering the moment. You practice before. Now it's not, and this is landing as we're talking about this. Flow is only truly happening when we practice it enough that we don't need to think.
Yeah.
Because when we're still thinking, when we're still trying to remember what are the words or what's the technique and so on, we're still not there. And that's a point that I think we need to remember, so that we don't feel like, oh, I can't get in flow when we're still in the practice phase,
Yeah.
because we're practicing exactly to be able to get in flow.
Yes, that we need familiarity with the motions, the movements, and to build routine or ritual. I mean, practice is a good way to put it. Yeah, so this is an important element. We can flow in things that we've put in the time, put in the practice to learn. I'm trying to think beyond writing where else I experience flow.
Walking,
Say again?
walking, cooking.
Yeah, cooking for
Those
sure.
are definitely flow experiences that
Dancing, yeah.
dancing.
Yeah. And then also I've experienced, especially with dancing, like the breakdown. Where you're like, what am I doing? Oh no! And that's I forget which Malcolm Gladwell book it is. It might be What the Dog Saw. But there's a piece about professional tennis players and like some big sporting event, and this really talented tennis player choking, and what you can see happening is he's trying to serve, and you can watch him try to think mentally about what it means to serve a tennis ball. So here he served tennis ball how many, thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, and his body knows. And you can watch the moment where he's suddenly going, wait, throw up the ball for, okay, elbow back, then wait, no, is it the shoulder back? Like he's trying to figure it out in real time, and he chokes, and he loses his match.
That tells a lot of how I experienced the singing on stage as well, because that's the exact difference. Like when I am in flow, I feel in my body. Like what I said in the throne of the voice, I can feel where the sound is vibrating, and that gives me that joy, that those waves of pleasure as I'm singing, and that informs what I'm doing, right? So there's a movement within that is already sort of known but new every time. Ooh, sort of known but new. I love the phrase. And when I am in something that I'm not completely, I haven't practiced enough, or where I get disconnected, then it feels like it's up here in my mind. I need to remember the lyrics. I need to remember when to breathe. I need to remember what's the next song right now. there was moments where I had practice and so on, but I snapped it out because I was thinking, what's the next song that I need to sing afterwards? And that snaps me out of the moment because I'm looking into the future while I should be present within the moment. But yeah, I can and that calls me with what we're saying, like, I need to bring my shoulder back. Like, if you're thinking of this, you're not gonna hit the right moment.
Oh my God, you're dead in the water. It's awful. And I mean, I've also had experiences on stage totally forgetting my lines. Like, just absolutely no clue what I'm supposed to say next. It's like
I had that with songs. Like, someone asked us to sing a song, and it's been such a long time that I don't sing that song, that I was like asking my partners in the band, like, what's the first line again?
Yeah.
I completely blanked the first line, and after I got the first line, I could sing.
And trying to think our way to it. You brought up jazz earlier, and improvisation is a staple of jazz. You can only successfully improvise when you know the key you're playing in, like an intimate friend.
Yeah.
Right? You know which notes are people are expecting to hear. Then you know which notes you can get away with, but they're going to surprise people, and how you can play with their expectations, because you're like, the key like it's your best friend, and you're in it, and you play with it, and you do this, and like that comes from what might not feel like flow at all. That comes from practice and coming at something again and again and again, allowing it to feel awkward, becoming familiar with the vocabulary, like whatever form it takes. So like, if we want more flow, we need to put in the practice time.
And also, another thing that came to me when you were talking about workshops and lectures and so on, speaking gigs, getting curious with the mistakes, because it might not be music or that you need to remember the words exactly, but let's say we said a wrong word or a wrong sentence, a wrong thought, that was not exactly what you wanted. I had a teacher do this, and I got really interested in the way she handled it. She said the thing that wasn't the thing that she wanted to say, and then she opened it. She said, like, I said this, I intended to say this. Interesting. Why this word came.
Yeah.
And then she started, instead of feeling like, people are going to think that I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm saying because I said the wrong thing, and creating that disconnection, she got curious about what this mistake is bringing of meaning to what I'm teaching. And I love
that. Yeah. And often, I mean, those are often big, important moments. This will happen to me sometimes when I'm doing a live video, and I just stop and I'm like, well, that was an interesting Freudian slip. Like, why is that coming through? Yeah. I've a card for Mercury in the Wise Writer with an Oracle deck, and his message is, there are no accidents. Yeah. It's about, like, when you're writing it, you write the thing, you're like, oh crap, not that. Like, before you delete it, just like take a moment and, is the trickster Mercury coming through with a sideways message to bring my attention to something?
Yeah.
I love that. So what's your insight around flow?
I feel like my insight is rewatching this episode, because there were so many. Like, the whole thing with movement and the Einsteinian time. It's something that, is in the Big Leap from Gay Hendricks. I intended to reread my notes from that book.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I feel like it's going to be a next step for me. But in terms of insights, well, so many, so many. I can't think of one. Uh,
For me, it's the leaning in and this beautiful
Leaning
image
into
you gave
your-
us of like mind leaning into flow, leaning back into reactivity, and then leaning so far back, I fell out of my body and I'm in dissociation.
Yeah.
And the ways to lean forward are going like, oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. And what
Yeah.
else? And which is curiosity, right? Which we've
Yeah.
touched upon a few times.
Yeah, that thing that you were talking about, the guy with, I just said about this, but the guy thinking of, I need to move my shoulder here and so on. That image alone helps me see, oh yeah, that's how it feels when I'm dissociating. That's how it feels when I'm separate, and it might feel like, yeah, there's association where we're not aware of anything, not even our body, but there's that mind trying to bring the dissociated with it, which is that guy basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like the mind trying to call the dissociated part of us back.
Yes, it's struggling to integrate, and that
Yeah.
can be a pointer toward I'm disintegrated.
Yeah,
right now.
and then inside for me is like noticing when this is happening, so that we can, instead of lean back, lean in.
Yeah. And I definitely recognize that narrative voice, and that's what started happening to me in the workshop was like people's faces are neutral. And I'm so expressive and I come from a family that's so expressive that if somebody's face is neutral, to me that's like you're terribly upset and you don't want to hear anything more.
Yeah, I have that
Everybody to
feeling.
wear their emotions on their face the way I do.
That that's a great point. I feel like both you and I, and maybe some of the people who watch this as well, we are so connected to the other, but this is a point where the flow need, and I guess that's why it's so easy to be in flow by ourselves and a little bit harder to be in flow with an audience, with other people that we feel like we need to impress. But Guru Jagat used to say that I need to impress myself so that I can impress others. And I got reminded of that through another mentor who talks about we need to listen to ourselves so that we are listened. So always being that movement within to without, instead of coming from I need to bring you in. You need to understand me. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Being more like in that point where you said like, I need to open so that they can come with me in the journey.
Oh my God, I'm just buzzing. I am my first listener.
Yeah, I am a first listener. Yes.
That's my big insight. And probably why Guru Jagat was so hilarious. Because she was just cracking herself up, right?
Yes, she made herself laugh. And even when it was like, that's ridiculous, you would laugh with her because she was having so much joy in her. So
Yeah. And you used the word impress, and I felt myself resist, like, I'm not trying to impress people. And that's, a different, like a different tangent. Is that true or not? But I do relate to that feeling of like when there are other people, I'm wanting to know, are you with me? Are you coming along with me on that journey? And whether I phrase it as I want to impress them or my ego is like, no, it's more noble than that. I want to teach them. I want to share wisdom. But regardless of
have
what
an impact.
regardless of what I call
Impresses.
it is important to me. Like if I'm speaking to others, it is important to me that something is coming through and connecting with them. And it feels isolating and lonely and terrifying if I feel like there isn't a connection. And but I can always cultivate the connection in myself. And that's what I experienced was when I doubled down on cultivating my connectedness, I saw that it created the space for then people to step in and go, okay, I'm a little nervous sharing this because it's not, it doesn't feel complete, but here's my story. And can you help me workshop it? And the most beautiful, moments of growing and learning and co-creation and insight happened as a result. So it's and for me, it's like a beautiful, beautiful way of being voluminous, having a lot of volume and having a lot of openness at the same time. And maybe that's kind of what summarizes flow for me, is like, I'm putting a lot of life force into it. Like when I'm done with a session of writing, it's like, whoa, I need a couple sandwiches and a slice of chocolate cake, because that was a lot of energy. It's like there's so much volume of my life force and yet so much openness for source, for other people at the same time. There's this term wall of sound that people associated with Phil Spector, the music producer, right? And it was this idea of like, it was like every instrument in the orchestra and every, and it was just like this wall of sound. When was this? Like the 70s, 60s? I'm not sure exactly. But it was this feeling of like you throw everything at the audience. And that, I'm not commenting on the music that had that, but just this term, a wall of sound, is the antithesis of what I want to be doing when I'm in a flow state and when I'm channeling and when I'm connecting with people. I want a wave that somebody can like surf with me.
Yes, I love that analogy that you brought, because I even noticed with how music is evolving, and there's wall of sound quite a lot, but I see a lot of music that people are leaning into more, where there's a lot of silence in between. There's a lot of spaciousness in the music, and I feel like that sums up quite a lot into how it is to listen to myself before delivering, or even like listening to myself as I'm listening others as well, because there's that space. There's no need to feel the void, to feel um, the the silence all the time. You leave the space to listen to what the moment is calling.
Beautiful. You leave the space to listen to what the moment is calling for. Amazing. What a brilliant place.
I love this episode.
Yeah.
How many insights?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm grateful that you were feeling frazzled, because then we took a moment to tune in before we started, and I'm sure that made a lot of difference for me, just like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Arrive. Breathe.
Yes.
Hum.
That's also a point, right? When I got here, I thought, I don't want to bring this energy to the episode. Let's just settle first so that the movement can start fresh.
Yeah.
And yeah, that makes a whole difference.
Thank you for that. Amazing. Oh, I can't wait to hear everybody listening, watching, what is your insight and takeaway, and how does flow feel to you?
Yes. And read The Big Leap.
Until next time.
Till next time.